Alright, motherfuckers, after watching Raw and Backlash, I felt that I needed to make this video. Recent news have let us know that Paul Heyman's services as booker, whatever the fuck it's called, head writer, whatever the fuck he does, the guy that decides what's going to happen on the show, has been relieved. He has been relieved of this position in favor of having Bruce Pritchard do both SmackDown and Raw, motherfuckers. Now, this is noteworthy. This is noteworthy for a couple of reasons. First of all, we all saw how good this Raw was. Number one. Hey, right, motherfuckers? Two, the idea that Paul Heyman understands wrestling really well is horse shit. All right? Let's go over Paul Heyman's career really quickly before we start talking about the issue at hand. Number one, Paul Heyman started ECW. ECW was largely garbage. It had some good matches, don't get me wrong, but the characters and the wrestlers were largely shit. Sure, there were a few good ones. Rhino, RVD, you could argue Sabu, the Dudley Boys, who are the best tag team of all time in my opinion. There were a few good ones, but for the vast majority, the wrestling was subpar. It was just hardcore nonsense. The storytelling was exaggerated, and more importantly, ECW had a very niche audience and did not become big for reasons that should be clear. Now, before I continue, I'd like to say that I personally really enjoyed ECW. However, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Sandman and Tommy Dreamer are better wrestlers than The Rock and Stone Cold, all right? That's just ridiculous, motherfuckers. They're like on the level of, I don't know, Val Venus and Godfather, if that. I would even argue that Val Venus is better in the ring than both those guys, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Very little of ECW was focused on wrestling. A lot of it was focused on hardcore spots, which I personally enjoyed. And the storylines in ECW were fun. They had stables. It was cool. However, that's where the buck stops. His career highlight is ECW. The facts are that since ECW and arguably running SmackDown for those few years, right? That I don't even attribute that so much to Paul Heyman as I do to the fact that that was just a good crop of wrestlers on both shows. And because Raw was built around Triple H, that everyone else basically was on SmackDown. Everyone else that had to prove something was on SmackDown. Raw had like Triple H. It had, RVD at a certain point. Even he was on SmackDown too. Edge eventually moved to Raw. But Raw, I can't even remember anybody that was really like a Raw guy other than Evolution. Booker T went back and forth. Shawn Michaels, he was a Raw guy. You know what I'm saying? That was it. It was Shawn Michaels and Evolution. You know what I mean? And like La Resistance. So I take away some credit for Paul Heyman for like the golden age, the golden era of SmackDown, right? I place that credit on people like Edge, Mysterio, Guerrero, Batista, JBL, Christian, Booker T, King Booker, you know what I'm saying? Lashley, Finlay, like these great wrestlers, So, with that being said, since then, even if you give him credit for ECW and SmackDown, since that's been like 15 years. In 15 years, Paul Heyman has done virtually nothing good for wrestling. Not one thing. ECW One Night Stand sucked ass. It was saved by RVD versus Cena, whatever, the second one. But all the other ones were shit. I don't give a fuck if Super Crazy is going to beat Nunzio. No one cares about that. You know what I'm saying? What's the storyline? The storyline is ECW's back for one night. No one cares. Now, Paul Heyman, unfortunately, gets credit for things like the rise of Brock Lesnar. I got news for you, pal. If the hater was Brock Lesnar's manager, Brock Lesnar would still be Brock Lesnar. Paul Heyman added virtually nothing to Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar doesn't need Paul Heyman to come and cut the same promo for him for 4 years in a row. He doesn't need that. Brock Lesnar can just come out, just look at the crowd, take the boos, and leave. The end. That's all he needs. Brock Lesnar is too cool for a manager. Now, Paul Heyman did help in finding CM Punk, but as you all know, I think CM Punk is an overrated scumbag. So I don't give a fuck about that either. Now, as a booker, clearly it is evident that Bruce Pritchard is better than Paul Heyman. And I will explain the fundamental reason why the booking of this week's Raw, and hopefully it continues. I could be wrong, and it's all downhill from here on, right? But the influences of Paul Heyman, right, seem to be, based on this episode of Raw, very negative towards wrestling. The first thing is that Paul Heyman likes these weird wrestlers that completely suck ass, right? So he likes Aleister Black, totally sucks ass. He likes Cedric Alexander, total garbage. And he likes Buddy Murphy, who may very well be the worst of these three. You know what I'm saying? So with that in mind, Paul Heyman clearly does not understand what makes great wrestling. It's not having these athletes. It's having these personalities. This is very odd that people like Paul Heyman and Triple H don't get this, considering that both Paul Heyman and Triple H are big personalities. They're charismatic dudes, and both Triple H and Paul Heyman in wrestling have either been, very like gimmick-driven, like performance-driven performers, or in Paul Heyman's case, he has been surrounded by people like the Sandman and things like that got over and became cool because they're cool, not because they're wrestling. You know what I mean? But for some reason, they tend to favor these jabrones. They don't favor the entertainment aspect. Now, again, this episode of Raw was not perfect. As a matter of fact, it had the worst segment ever with the Viking Raiders and the Street Profits, which, in my opinion, all four of those people and everyone involved in writing that storyline should be released immediately. They can go feud with FTR on AEW or some bullshit, And the Viking Raiders can become the Viking Explorers or some bullshit like that. Now, the main thing that I liked about this episode of Raw was that there were several matches and several segments where there were questions that were raised. And questions that were not easily discernible, right? It was not clear, for example, right, what would happen with Edge and Christian. Christian and Orton. Now, obviously, the smart money was Orton is going to destroy Christian. But would it be a competitive match? Would Christian puss out? That was a possibility, These things were done very well. The whole show was focused around Christian making a decision. And that was well done. Because it continues the story, not just for one segment, but it continues the story, just like back in the day, throughout the whole episode. This was something that I noticed happening with more than one segment. Back in the day, you would see people appear on TV more than once. And that made you want to keep watching, right? Because the show might open up with The Rock and Mankind, and then you might see like a match between like Bull Buchanan and Big Boss Man, right? And then there's still a chance that you might see The Rock cut a promo again. There's still a chance that The Rock might have a match, right? There was always that possibility. Nowadays, everything is announced, and there's no reason to keep watching. Like, if you like Seth Rollins, after the Rollins match, you can just turn it off. You understand what I'm saying? So, and I understand most people are there for Orton and Christian, but there's got to be some people that are Iconics fans, right? And they see the Iconics, they're like, oh, I'm done. Peace. I don't want to see anything else, Now, the reason why this episode was done well was because even the Iconics that I just mentioned, right? They came out, they had a match. Then they cut a promo after the match, taunting Sasha and Bayley. Then later on, they had another segment in the ring with Sasha and Bayley. This segment advanced so many things. Number one, it developed the characters of the Iconics from being just these like annoying like broads to being like kind of tough, right? Like Peyton Royce slapped Sasha Banks in the face. That's not something that I would expect from a Peyton Royce character. But yet here we are, motherfucks. Bayley continued to be self-centered, right? Sasha got angry. The match was set up. This was a multi-segment story that was told. Another perfect example of this was Akira Tozawa and the Ninjas. Now, I don't like Akira Tozawa and the Ninjas, but several times we saw Akira Tozawa and the Ninjas. We saw them interact backstage with the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders. Then we saw them in the match, the Ninjas had the match. And then afterwards, we saw them talking to R-Truth, who also had a segment storyline told today. R-Truth was out there just cutting promos. Lashley and MVP had several promos. None of it felt weird. None of it was flaccid. And the things that end with ... to be continued, like Rey Mysterio and Dominic, those were done exceptionally well as well, right? Because it's like, all right, Dominic came, he attacked Seth Rollins, and he ran away. What is he going to do? Fight all three of them? Of course not, right? That story tells itself. It's done, period. Get the fuck out of here, right? The Christian storyline also, like I said, throughout the whole night. There were a lot of moments. God damn it. My other video started. There was a lot of moments here that were continued throughout the night. Now, in my opinion, the thing that makes Bruce Pritchard better than Paul Heyman decisively is the fact that several of these segments, like I said, like the Christian segment and others, were not clearly discernible as to what was going to happen. You know what I mean? So, for example, Drew McIntyre and R-Truth versus Lashley and MVP. You know, it felt, obviously, 99% chance Drew McIntyre is going to retain somehow, and that's what I predicted, that R-Truth gets the win. But the stipulations of the match were such where it was within the realm of possibility that Drew McIntyre could lose the title on Monday Night Raw. Now, again, this was a long shot, but it was within the realm of possibility, motherfuckers. It wasn't like when Drew McIntyre comes out and he's like, I'm doing an open challenge, and like Sami Zayn comes out and you know Sami Zayn's not going to be the world champion. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. There was a possibility that Lashley pins R-Truth. You know what I mean? That R-Truth fucks up, Lashley pins him. There was a small chance, cuts, and that's what made it good. The Apollo Crews Shelton Benjamin match. There was a chance that Shelton Benjamin wins that match with help from MVP to continue the storyline. You understand what I'm saying? There were moments where I had to watch. I don't give a fuck about Apollo Crews, but I wanted to. I mean, I like him, I guess, but I don't give a fuck. I would skip his match normally, but I had to watch because I was like, what if Shelton Benjamin wins the title? That's what keeps viewers engaged. The what if element. The what if element is the primary differentiator between wrestling and horse shit. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if you know what's going to happen, why the fuck would you want to watch it? Like the Cody Rhodes Open Challenge. I like it in theory because, you know, it's going to be like at least one competitive match that might put someone over. But we all know that Cucky Rhodes is not going to lose it on a random episode. You know? So the fact that there is no what if makes me think, like, I don't give a fuck. You know? Like, I would even say that Jack Swagger versus Cody Rhodes is more appealing than Shelton Benjamin versus Apollo Crews. However, I care more about Apollo Crews and Shelton Benjamin because of the way that it was booked. This is what good booking is. Good booking isn't, I want this to happen, and if it doesn't happen, it's bad booking, you know? Good booking is, like, you don't even know you want to see it, but you tune in to see it, motherfuckers. That's what good booking is. Good booking is taking someone like Shelton Benjamin, who hasn't been on TV for like a year and a half, and taking Apollo Crews and making something interesting out of it, right? Good booking is finally closing the chapter, which must have been opened by Paul Heyman, the whole cuckold storyline with Lana and Lashley, right? Boom, done, closed, motherfuckers. Good wrestling and good booking is Seth Rollins doing what he did, cutting a pretty good promo, interacting with Rey Mysterio, and then dominate. This is good booking. Clearly, Bruce Pritchard is the superior booker of these two jabrones. Now, with that being said, motherfucks, right? This needs to continue, right? This cannot be a one-off, you know? WWE and Raw have been plagued by some significant injuries or removals. Like, for example, Roman Reigns on SmackDown isn't wrestling, Becky Lynch, whatever. The show's been better since they've been gone, but it is what it is, you know? You need to continue this momentum. There are actual storylines that have started today. You understand what I'm saying? The storyline of MVP building a stable and now going after Apollo Crews. That's a storyline now. If you drop the ball and then next week MVP is like wrestling R-Truth, then you fucked up. But if you continue the storyline, it could be something compelling. Again, I'm not saying it's the best storyline ever, but it's something at least. It's something, motherfuckers. Even Tozawa's ninjas are something. And in this day and age, when we don't have something anymore, we don't have these things. Now we just have, there's these two assholes, one of them is balding, they're called the best friends, and they have this weird Ryan Gosling wannabe called Orange Cassidy coming out. And the whole segment is like Orange Cassidy has his spots, and the wrestlers have to like pretty much tolerate his goofiness, right? Until it ends with him being beaten with a bag of oranges. Like, that's fucking retarded. You know, if this is the kind of creativity that Vince stifled, then good for Vince. Because if someone told me, like I said last time, motherfucker, if Matt Hardy said, I have an idea, Vince, for a gimmick. What if I switch characters from like my different personalities? Vince probably said, no, Matt, you were never really that interesting. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, we're not going to do that. We did your whole woken Matt Hardy thing. You had the run that everyone wanted. Now go fuck off. You know what I'm saying? Go fuck off and wrestle Sammy Guevara. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's the idea here. It needs to continue. In order for Bruce Pritchard and whoever else is in fucking charge right now to continue these legitimate storylines and continue their advancement, not just in the short term, but in the long term, motherfuckers, in the long term. That's the idea. Of course, the main storyline is Edge Orton, so we'll see how that goes. It does put Drew McIntyre in the back burner, but c'est la vie. The whole point I was trying to make here is this. Paul Heyman fucking sucks. He is not responsible for the success of neither CM Punk nor Brock Lesnar. He is not responsible even for the success of ECW. I would attribute more to like Joey Styles kept that company alive with his awesome commentary, right? He's not responsible. Like he's never been this genius, right? He's not like a Vince McMahon, you know? Vince McMahon who's come up with like great ideas, right? And put himself in actual great storylines. Paul Heyman really hasn't done that. Paul Heyman's storylines is like, I'm a manager, I'm going to betray this guy in favor of this guy. Who the fuck cares, motherfuckers? And clearly, Raw has been shit. The ratings have been going down. And I believe that if this continues, the ratings will go up. Now, of course, they're not going to go up to 6 million. But they can go up to 3 million. You know what I'm saying? I would not be surprised if this brings back fans. You know, like I now, for the first time in God knows how long, actually want to watch Raw. I can't wait for Raw. I want to see what the fuck's going to happen. I want to see if Christian comes out. I want to see what Orton's going to do. I want to see how all these little things are developed, including the MVP Apollo Crews storyline, even if it leads to a match between the two. I don't care. You know, I want to see what happens with Lashley. I'm looking forward to seeing R-Truth. You know, I even am looking forward to Dominic. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking forward to all these things. So with that, motherfucks, keep it dirty up in this bitch. You know what I'm saying? And expect some more videos in the next coming days.